Dedicate ourselves to an ever-deepening love of each other, love for the wondrous creation in which we live and serve, and love for its supreme author, God himself. Spiritual anonymity. The spiritual anonymity is this: love for its supreme author, God himself. You notice he doesn't say higher power or any of the other stuff. He calls a spade a spade. The author, God himself. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Goes on to say, we now entrust you of AA's distant reaches, you who so well symbolize the unique and loving communication that is ours, the universal fellowship, to carry this message to fellow members everywhere, and most especially to all those who still not know it, and who, God willing, may soon issue out of darkness into light. He's always, always, always thinking about the new man or woman. Spiritual anonymity ensures that we can do that. That is so cool. All right, humility on page 71. That novel concept, humility. And obviously, it's the very top paragraph there. And he just got done talking about unity in tradition 1. We're going to go ahead and, it's on page 70 over there. We're going to go ahead and read the whole thing. And it says, and finally, this is the long form, of course, we of Alcoholics Anonymous believe that the principle of anonymity has immense spiritual significance. It reminds us that we're to place principles before personality, that we're actually practicing genuine humility. To the end, that our great blessings may never spoil us, and we shall forever live in thankful contemplation of him who presides all over us. To sum it up, for thousands of alcoholics yet to come, AA does have an answer, but there is one condition. We must, not should, could, ought to, at all costs, not some, not a lot, not quite a few, preserve our essential unity, tradition 1, and it must, not should, could, ought to, make unbreakably secure. Without permanent unity, okay, there could be little lasting recovery for anyone. Hence, our future absolutely, that means you have to, depends on the creation and observance of a sound tradition. First things will always need to be first, humility before success, and unity before fame. Yes, I've been reading that to you since the beginning, and once again, that's where we got that. So how cool is that? Let's go to page 7 and 8. See what he says about humility. Bottom of page 7. He goes on to say, for one thing, our A program is spiritually centered, not religious. Most of us have found enough humility to believe in and depend upon God. Wow. Believing and dependent are two different things. Okay, we have found that humility, he keeps going back to it, okay? Spiritual humility. By facing the fact that alcoholism is a fatal malady over which we individuals are powerless. The Washingtonians, on the contrary, thought drinking just to be a strong habit which could be broken by willpower and expressed in pledges, plus the sustaining force of mutual aid through understanding society of ex-drunks. Apparently thought little of personality change and nothing at all of spiritual conversion. Step 12, and obviously the 11 steps. Mutual aid plus pledges did a lot for them, but that wasn't enough. Their individual egos still ran riot in every channel save alcohol. Oh, I get it. The Washingtonians didn't have their traditions. In 8 years, they crashed and burned. If it wasn't for the traditions, Alcoholics Anonymous would have already crashed and burned. If we don't follow the 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous, we, like the Washingtonians, will crash and burn, and they will be reading about us in the history books too. I get it. That's right. Carl Sandburg said any civilization or society that no longer exists forgot where they came from. In other words, they didn't have spiritual anonymity. I'm really starting to connect the dots now. Okay, and he goes on to say, And it says, self-serving forces have no real humility. Having little application that the penalty too much for self-will to death to the alcoholic, having no greater power to serve, finally destroyed the Washingtonians. Wow, that's obviously tradition 10, so everything's wrapped up in there. It says, when therefore we A's look to the future, we must, not should, could, always, not sometimes, not most of the time, not a lot of time, be asking ourselves if the Spirit which now binds us together. Oh, by the way, y'all, in the big blue book that we'll be starting in about a month, that's page 17. He uses that word, binds us. I get it. So if it's important enough to have it there, and by the way, that is chapter 2, there is a solution. That must be pretty damn important when he's talking about it here in tradition 12, which binds us together in our common cause. We have our common welfare, common solution. There's a lot of common things we have, right? Okay? Common problem, common solution, okay? And it says, will always, not sometimes, not most, not a lot, not quite a few, be stronger than those personal ambitions and desires which tend to drive us apart. Oh, I get it. If we're not binding us, we're separating us because of personal ambitions and desires. Okay. So long as the positive forces are greater, we cannot fail. Happily so far, the ties that bind us, once again, have been much stronger than those that might break us. Though the individual AA is strong, is under no human coercion, is almost at perfect liberty, we have nevertheless achieved a wonderful unity on vital essentials. For example, the 12 steps of the AA program are not crammed down anybody's throat. They are not sustained by any human authority, yet we powerfully unite around them because the truth contained saved in our lives has opened the door to a new world. Our experience tells us that these universal truths work. The anarchy of the individual yields to their persuasion. He sobers up, is led little by little to complete agreement with our simple fundamentals. And obviously you know where he's going with tradition 1 and tradition 2. And that is what's so neat about these traditions. Obviously, they are so interwoven. Page 254. This is a good one. In fact, what we see here is kind of our payoff. And it's called Humility for Today. And if you get a chance, please, if anything, get this, because there is just so much power in this article that he wrote about the real deal, about spiritual anonymity, and about that thing, that elusive thing that we're looking for, real recovery for the real alcoholic. I never watered down my whiskey, therefore I cannot water down recovery. 12 steps, 12 traditions, 12 concepts, and then the warranties that go along with the concepts. Listen to what he says. There can be no absolute humility for us humans. Whew, thank God, okay? At best, we can only glimpse the meaning of splendor of such a perfect ideal. As the book Alcoholics Anonymous says, we are not saints. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Only God himself can manifest in the absolute. We human beings must live and grow in the domain of the relative. We seek humility for today. And that's so important because if you didn't know, y'all, the alcoholic ego takes you to two places. It takes you to the past, it takes you to the future. God ain't there. He's in the right here, right now. The function of the ego is to take you away from the power. That's why it doesn't want you to live in today. Most importantly, in the present moment, it wants you to takes you away from the power. When you're away from the power, then it wants you to take a drink, and it wants you to die, and that is the function of the alcoholic ego, and it is not going to go away until you are dead, and it's going to move on to the next one. That's why it's so important. That's why he's talking about humility today, the power, the spiritual anonymity, in other words, God. Listen to what he says. Therefore, our practical question is this. Just what do we mean by humility for today? Glad you asked that. And how do we know we have found that? We scarcely need to be reminded the excessive guilt of rebellion leads us to spiritual poverty. Uh-oh, be standing on the side, cardboard sign, give me some spiritual anonymity. I wonder how much you'd collect in a day. They might run your ass over if you're doing that, okay? All right, it goes on. I don't think you have to get a permit from the city to be begging for that either. Anyhow, but it was a very long time before we could go even more broke on the spiritual pride. I tell you what, man, he's just digging it in and digging it out. Isn't it beautiful? When we early age got our first glimmer of how spiritually prideful we could be, we coined this expression, don't try to be too damn good by Thursday. That old-time admonition looked like another one of those handy alibis that can excuse us from trying to be our best. Yet a closer view reveals just the contrary. This is our AA way of warning against pride, blindness, and the imaginary perfections that we do not possess. Beautiful. Now that we no longer patronize bars and bordellos, you might want to get your dictionary for bordello, boys, okay? Now that we bring home the paychecks, now that we've been so very active in AA, and now that people congratulate us on the signs of progress, well, we naturally proceed to congratulate ourselves. Oh, that's right. I got this amount of time. I got this sobriety. I've done this. I got news for you. You ain't got nothing, and you ain't doing nothing either, okay? And it goes on to say this, and it says, yet we may not be within hailing distance of humility, meaning well, yet doing badly. How often have I said or thought, I am right and you are wrong. My plan is correct and yours is faulty. Thank God your sins are not my sins. You are hurting AA and I'm going to stop you cold. I have God's guidance and he's on my side, and so on indefinitely. The alarming thing about such pride blindness is the ease with which it is justified. We need not look so far to see this deceptive brand of self-justification as a universal destroyer of harmony and of love. Wow. It sets person against person, nation against nation. By every form of folly and violence can be made to look right and even respectable. Of course, it is not for us to condemn. We need only investigate ourselves. How then can we do more and more in reducing our guilt, rebellion, and pride? When I inventory such defects, I like to draw a picture and tell myself a story. My picture is that of a highway to humility, and my story is an allergy. On one side of my highway, I see a great bog. The highway's edge borders a shallow marsh which finally shelves down into the muddy morass of guilt and rebellion which I have so often floundered. Self-destruction lays out no wait there, and I know this. But the country on the other side of the road looks fine. I'm seeing fighting glades and beyond the great mountains. The countless trails leading to this pleasant land look safe. It will be easy, I think, to find my own way back. Together with a number of friends, I decide to take a brief detour. We pick our path and happily plunge along it. Elated, somebody says, maybe we'll find some gold on the top of that mountain. Then, to our amazement, we do strike gold. Not nuggets in the stream, but fully minted coins. The head of these coins each declare, this is pure gold, 24 carats. Surely we think this is the reward for our patient plodding back in those everlasting brightness of the highway. Soon, though, we begin to notice the words of the tails of these coins. Remember, we talked about so often, two sides to every coin, duality of things, good, bad, bad, good, and it's sweet and sour, and two sides of the coin. Lo and behold, and here it is, what we're talking about. All right, let's flip the coin over, and we have strange forebodings. Some pieces carry a rather attractive inscription. I am power. I am acclaim. I am wealth. I am righteous, they say. But others seem very strange. For example, I am the master race. I am the benefactor. I am the good causes. I am God. This is very puzzling. Nevertheless, we pocket them because next come the real shockers. They read, I am pride. I am revenge. I am disunity. I am chaos. Then we turn up a single coin, just one, which declares, I am the devil himself. Some of us are horrified. We cried, this is fool's gold. This is fool paradise. Let's clear out of here. Guess what? It may be too late. But many would not return with us. They said, let's stay here, sort over these damn coins. We'll pick only ones that carry lucky inscriptions. For instance, the Those that say power and glory and righteousness. You fellows are not going to be sorry you didn't stick, or you fellows are going to be sorry you didn't stick with us. Not strangely, it was years before this part of our original company returned to the highway. They told us the story, and those who had sworn never to return. They had said, this money is real gold and don't tell us any different. There's plenty of firewood here. We'll just melt some of the stuff down into gold, good solid gold bricks. Then our late arrivals added, this is how the gold of pride claim our brothers. They are already quarreling over the bricks when we left. Some were hurt and a few were dying. They had begun to destroy each other. Oh, that's right. If Alcoholics Anonymous is going to falter, it'll be within. A house divided doesn't and cannot stand. So here's what it is. Beautiful story. This symbolic picture graphically tells me that I may attain humility for today only to the extent that I'm able to avoid the bog of guilt and rebellion and that fair but deceiving land which is strewn with the coin of pride. This is how I can find and stay on the road to humility which lies in between. Therefore, a constant, not an occasional, not sometimes, not when you feel like it, inventory, that means in step 4, 10, and 11 when we do it, can reveal when I'm off the road is always, not sometimes, not most, not a lot, not quite a few, always in order. And obviously, if I have those things that are going, it's going to prevent me from sacrifice, anonymity, humility, spiritual anonymity, foundation, which we need. Of course, our first attempts at inventories are apt to prove very unrealistic. I used to be a champ in unrealistic self-appraisal. Yeah, and that old timer used to say, don't grade your own paper because you will cheat. I wanted to look only at the part of my life which seemed good. And you know, see, word seemed. Okay. He uses the right word in all time. You know, in that other book where it says, can or will not, they seem to have been born constitutionally incapable. Seem is an illusion. It's a delusion. It's a mirage. It's a cop-out. Seem, the word seem, that's what he said here. Seem to be good. Then I would greatly exaggerate whatever future I suppose I attained. Next, I would congratulate myself on the grand job I was doing. So my unconscious self-deception never failed to turn my few good assets into serious liabilities. Isn't that beautiful? This astonishing process was always, not some, not most, not a lot, quite a few, a pleasant one. Naturally, this generated a terrible hankering for still more accomplishments and still more approval. I was falling straight back into the pattern of my drinking days. Here was some of my old goals: power, fame, and applause. Besides, I had the best alibi known, the spiritual alibi. The fact that I really didn't have a spiritual objective always made this utter nonsense seem perfectly right. I couldn't tell a good coin from a bad one. It was a spiritual gold bricking at worst. I shall never forget the damage I did to people around me. Indeed, I still tremble when I realize what I might have done to AA into its future. Boy, oh boy, I tell you what, man, talking about being humble, he's putting black and white forever. Goes on to say, but sometimes I would simply have to look at certain situations where on the face of them, I was doing very badly. Right away, a rousing rebellion would set in, then the search for excuses would become frantic. These, I would claim, are really good man's faults. Uh-oh. Then that pet gadget finally broke apart. I would think, well, if those people would only treat me right, I wouldn't have to behave the way I do. That's in step 10 when we continue to take personal inventory and we're wrong, promptly explained it. I think that's how we do that. Okay, and it goes on to say, it says, obviously, next thing in his order, God only knows I do have these awful compulsions. I just can't get over this one, so you will have to release me. At last, it came the time when I would shout, this I positively do not and won't even try. Of course, my conflicts went right on mounting up because I was simply loaded with excuses and refusals. When these troubles finally had exhausted me enough, there was yet another escape. I would commence to wallow in that bog of guilt. Here, pride and rebellion would give way to depression. In other words, you're feeling sorry for yourself. Though the variations were many, the main theme was always how god-awful I am. Just as I had exaggerated my modest attainments by pride, I now exaggerated my defects through guilt. I would race about confessing all, and a great deal more, to whatever listened. Believe it or not, I took that to be great humility on my part, and I counted this as my sole remaining asset and consolation. During these bouts with guilt, there was never a decent regret for the harms that I had done, nor was there any serious thought of making such restitution as I could. The idea of asking God's forgiveness, let alone forgive myself, never occurred to me. Oh, wait a minute. I think in step 11 in your nightly inventory, you ask for God's forgiveness. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what we're supposed to do. See, absolutely fascinating. Of course, my really big liability, spiritual pride and arrogance, was not examined at all. I had shut out the light by which I may have seen it. Today, I think there can be a clear linkage between my guilt and my pride. Both of them are certainly attention getters. In pride, I say, look at me, I'm wonderful. In guilt, I would moan, I am awful. Therefore, guilt is the reverse side of that coin of pride. Guilt aims at self-destruction, and pride aims at the destruction of others. Okay, squiggly writing, and here's where it's at. That is why today I see humility for today as that safe and secure stance midway between these violent emotional disturbances. It's a quiet place where I can keep enough perspective and enough balance to take my next small step up the clearly marked road that points towards eternal values. Many of us experience far greater emotional gyrations than I have. Others have experienced less, but all, not some, not most, not a lot, not quite a few, all of us still have them at times. Yet I think we need not regret these conflicts. They seem to be a necessary part of growing up, emotionally and spiritually. They are the raw material out of which much of our progress has been made. Does anyone ask in AA is but a wrenching pit of pain and conflict? The answer is certainly not. In great measure, we A's have really found peace. Isn't that what we're looking for? Oh, that's right. Promise of the fifth step is we can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Oh, I get it. Okay. So if we ain't got it, we know what's missing. However, haltingly, we have managed to attain an increasing humility. Here we are. Whose dividends have been serenity and legitimate joy. Wow. Okay, so I get it. We cannot detour as much as far as we once did. On the outset of this meditation, it was thought that absolute ideals are far beyond our attainment, or even within our comprehension, that we would sadly lacking humility if we really felt that we could achieve anything like absolute perfection in this brief span of earthly existence. Such a presumption would certainly be the acme of spiritual pride. Reasoning thus, many people have no truck at all about absolute spiritual values. Perfectionists say they are either full of conceit because they fancy they have reached some impossible goal, or else they have swamped in self-condemnation because they have not done so. Yet I think that we should not hold this view. It is not the fault of great ideals that these are sometimes misused or become so shallow excuses for guilt, rebellion, and pride. On the contrary, we cannot grow very much unless we constantly try to envision the internal spiritual values, as step 11 of many AA's recovery program says, quote, sought through prayer and meditation to prove our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. This surely means that we ought to look towards God's perfection as our guide rather than as a goal to be reached in any foreseeable time. I'm sure, for instance, I ought to seek out the finest definition of humility that is possible for me to vision. This definition doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. I'm only asked to try. Suppose I shall choose this. One of the most powerful statements in our conference-approved literature coming up. Perfect humility would be the state of complete freedom from myself. Oh, that's right. That's what he says all throughout the book. Selfish self-centeredness, the root of our problems, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity. We're talking relieve me of bondage of self in step 3. It's the whole deal. Listen to what he says with that, okay? Freedom complete. Not some, not most, not a lot, not a few. Complete freedom from myself. Freedom from all the claims that my defects of character now lay so heavily upon me. Perfect humility would be a full willingness in all times and places to find and do the will of God. And remember, in the book, in Bill's own story, he talks about 4 types of willingness. You want to come back in January and find them, or you want to real quickie now? He talks about willingness, complete willingness, humble willingness, and entire willingness. So willingness is fine, but if I don't have at least these types, then I'm screwed. Not what I say, what the book says. So it goes on to say this. When I meditate on such a vision, I need not be dismayed because I shall never attain it, nor I swallow with the presumption that one of these days its virtue shall be mine. I need only to dwell on the vision itself, letting it grow even more, fill my heart, not my head, okay? This done, I can compare it to my last taken personal inventory. So I guess that answers the question, once and for all, should I do more than one inventory? Here's what the master said. So I would say yes, it is more than that, okay? Now, then it goes on to say this, and it says, obviously, then I get a sane and healthy idea of where I actually stand on the highway to humility. I see that my journey toward God has scarce begun. As I thus get down to my right size and stature, my self-concern and importance become amusing. Oh, humility, cut down the right size with myself, Almighty God, and my fellow man. Then faith grows that I do have a place on this highway, that I can advance upon it with a deepening peace and confidence. And once more, I know that God is good, that I need fear no evil. This is a great gift. This knowledge that I do have a destiny. As I continue to contemplate God's perfection, I discover still another joy. As a child hearing my first symphony, I was lifted up into its incredible harmony, though I know little of how and whence it came. So today, when I listen to God's music of the spheres, I can now again hear those divine chords by which I am told that the great composer loves me and I love him. I tell you what, one of the greatest articles written in Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay. Now, 206 and 208, and we will be rounding third, heading home. Obviously, 206 and 208, we've talked about that, I guess, in a way. And we have, and this is about when he was getting that, wanted to get that degree from Yale, and he respectively turned it down. When he talks about victory has been gained through surrender, fame achieved through anonymity, and for many 10,000s, the emotional, physical, and spiritual self has been rediscovered and reborn. Oh, that's right. In the narrative of the third step, it says we are reborn. In the doctor's opinion, Silkworth talks about recreating our life. God, I'm starting to get it all now. I got to have these to do what that other book talks about. It is a requirement. 12 steps, 12 tradition for the real alcoholic for real recovery. It's all intertwined. It binds us together. I mean, it's just crystal clear, okay? Then obviously he goes on to talk about this. We talked about that, and let's see what it says on 208. He gives us this thing here. He says about accepting that degree with a letter of tradition as of today would surely be setting the stage for violation of its spirit tomorrow. This would be, I am certain, a perilous precedent to set. Remember, one of the greatest turning points in the history, probably one of the most unknown events in our history, and people just don't know, don't care. Though it might be a novel departure, I'm wondering if the Yale Corporation would consider giving AA itself the entire citation, omitting the degree to me. Actually, he really wanted to say, would you give it to God? And Yale really would have committed him if he would have done that. So, let's see a farewell, what Bill says, and then I will give you my personal farewell as we wind this up. And God, it's been, it sounds like that other thing, it's been the best one for me, and it's been life-changing in so many different ways, this one. I mean, it's really taken it to a new level and layer, if you will, of what the traditions are and aren't, and what they mean, and how life-changing they really, really are, and really, really, really will be. Anyhow, page 95 and 96, he says a suggestion for Thanksgiving, but it's Bill's way of saying goodbye. We could say this especially for Thanksgiving, because he gives us that suggestion in Thanksgiving week, but it's really could be for us all throughout the year, and he goes on this. The idea of the year that AA might adopt Thanksgiving week as a time for meetings and meditation on the traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous. The friend who hatched this notion tells you that he thinks the idea good. I heartily agree with him what he says, and hope you will too. Pre-AA, we alkies could sometimes achieve the dubious state of called sobriety period. How bleak and empty this alleged virtue is. Only God or dried up drunk can fully testify the reason. Of course, everybody knows that it's nothing taken place of the victim's grog. He's still a man of conflict and disunity. Oh, that's right, restless, irritable, discontent, as Silkworth said. Okay, and obviously it says, he's a man of conflict and disunity. Come then the 12 steps of recovery and bringing him a personality change. The shattered prospect feels reassembled. He now says he seems all in one piece. We understand exactly what he means, for he describes the state of oneness. He's talking about personal unity. We know he must work to maintain it, that he can't stay alive without it. Listen to what he says. Recovery is personal unity. Tradition 1, unity for our fellowship. Without it, we will be like the individual. And what is that? Obviously, somebody without the personality change. Yeah, restless, irritable, discontent, dried up, and he bleak, an alleged virtue. And obviously now it says. What's that? What is it? Personal. My God, thank you. Can I say it? No, I was going to say thank you know who, but that would be that. So now, I love it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, I knew we'd get 12. That's the magic number. Hallelujah. Beautiful. Wow. Now, thank you. Oh, my God. Now, is that powerful or what? Now, I'm sure there's probably more in there. We'll find them. That is, how cool is that? I'm sure that's odd or that's God. And what page was that? Page 95. Is that perfect or what? Oh, that's right. That bigger book then that talks about, how's it? His grace is sufficient, his timing is impeccable, and his will is perfect. Oh. He strikes again. We were just talking about that earlier tonight. Isn't that cool? He strikes again. That's beautiful. Thank you. So where were we? Oh, man, that took away. Okay, yes. Okay, so you can't stay alive without it. We understand. Okay, what will not the same principle hold true for AA as a whole? Yes, it will. Isn't it also a fact that the alcoholic is in no greater peril when he takes his sobriety for granted? Oh my God, so now he's going to say if we, the fellowship, take this thing for granted, which we do. Oh, hey, you'll always be there. I don't have to pay those traditions. I don't have to do that. I don't have, yeah, it'll always be there. Ask the American native who roamed this country that were put on reservations, how their freedom and their land and their rights were taken for granted, and look where they're at now. It's gone. It ain't coming back. Yeah, you made a token, you've given it to them. It's the same thing for here. Once your liberties and your freedom are gone, you may not get them back. You may not get them back. And things we take for granted, you don't know what you got till it's gone, and you may never get them back. Recovery, you may not get that back. No guarantees. I mean, this is powerful. Listen to what he says. Okay, and it says, if vigilant practice, practice in step 12, practice in tradition 12, I get it, okay. If vigilant, not just practice, vigilant practice of sound principle is a matter of life and death for him, why isn't it equally so for the AA group or for our Fung Fun society itself? Yet many of us take the basic unity. We got another one. He's doing a little 13-stepping now. We got basic. Yeah, okay. Told you we'd find another one. Wow. Excuse me, but yeah. Basic unity of Alcoholics Anonymous for granted. Yeah, that's kind of shaking me to the core, isn't it? Yeah, because you know what? Washingtonians took their thing for basic, and in 8 years they were gone. The basic unity of Alcoholics Anonymous for granted. We seem to forget the whole of modern society is on a dangerous and contagious dry bender. Oh, I think I work with some of them, okay? Yeah, indeed. We evidently assume we are so different from other men and women that disintegration can't hit us. Wow. Oh, that's right. That other book talks about we learned that we had to fully concede our inner souls to the alcoholics. The delusion that we are presently may be like other people has to be smashed. He just got done telling us that you better smash that, Jack, because you ain't no different. Isn't that powerful? Oh, that's right. That book and this book is like that. Amazing. So that means I need to know what's in that blue book for this, and I need to know what's in this for that. I'm really starting to get the binding thing anyhow. It says our unity appear. Yes, our unity appears as a gift of heaven, something to be perpetually enjoyed by us AAs quite without effort. Wow. So we have another one. Is it basic? No, yeah, we got the basic. R. Where is that? Oh, you are. R. Go. Thank you. I'm running out of room up here, man. That's great. Okay, and it says, our unity appears as a gift from heaven, something to be perpetually enjoyed by us AAs quite without effort. Criticism is not intended because our present attitude is a natural one. It stems from the fact that no society in its infancy has ever enjoyed more providential protection against temptation and untoward happenings than has ours. Well, he's saying, but for the grace of God, there go we. Not because of us, because of God. Getting it? Okay. Minor troubles we have had, but none serious enough to test our adult strength. Is it not strange that we're a bit complacent and self-satisfied? Surely there need to be no counsel of fear nor lack of faith in the prediction that is a far greater time of trial may yet to be ours, When we think of our situation, though, simple prudence and foresight will tell us that. The 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous are a distillate of our experience of living and working together. Another definition of the 12 traditions. They apply the spirit of the 12 steps of recovery to our group life and serenity. They deal with our relations. Remember from the beginning. They deal with our relations with the world outside and with each other. They state our attitudes towards power and prestige, toward property and money. They would save us from the tempting alliances of major controversies. They would elevate principles far above personal ambitions. As a token of last, they request that we maintain personal anonymity before open public as a protection of AA and proof of the fact that our society intends to practice true humility. So you can see in that paragraph that he's gone through all 12 of our traditions. For the information of the general public and for the instruction of new AA members, the 12 traditions have just been released in much condensed short form. Talk about that, Earl Treat, 200 words, which we hope will be widely read and understood as the 12 steps of recovery. Very interesting, okay? And it said, should this happen, our current growing pains will be lessened, and we shall commence to lay up a great store of insurance for the years ahead. Oh, that's right. As it's going, Alcoholics Anonymous is in recession, not only in the literature, the number of members, and the number of groups. I'm sure that's just coincidental. Okay. What then could be more appropriate to set aside Thanksgiving week for discussion of the practical and spiritual values discovered in our traditions? We could thus reinforce our faith in the future by these prudent works. We could show that we deserve to go on receiving the priceless gift of oneness, which God, in His wisdom, has so freely given to Alcoholics Anonymous in the precious years of our infancy. I would like to once again thank you for being here. Thank you for this journey. Thank you for the past, the present, and the future. And I want to take this personal time, the liberty, if you would, to wish you a very Merry Christmas. That may not be a PC thing, and if you don't do Christmas, then I wish you a happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever your deal is. I mean that from my bottom of my heart. And I wish you the happiest and the healthiest and the most soberest New Year 2018 coming. And I would like to close with our two readings. Or no, with our two readings, and we'll be done. And I just want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart. And this once again was our declaration of two of our international conventions, our 30th in Toronto in 1965, and then again in 2005, and it's called the Responsibility Pledge. And it goes as this: I am responsible when anyone, anywhere reaches out for help. I want the hand of AA always to be there, and for that, I am responsible. And our Declaration of Unity, 1970, 35th anniversary, Miami Beach, Florida, goes as this: this we owe to AA's future, to place our common welfare first, to keep our fellowship united. For on AA unity depends our lives and the lives of those to come. God's blessings, God's grace, God's mercy, and God's speed to you. Can we close with the Lord's Prayer?